Okay, so next we're going to look at the interpersonal wellness model. And this model was created by Joyce Obidi. And I'm sorry, I pronounced her name wrong. It's Joyce Adidison. Um, so we're going to look at the model that she created. And there are various levels to this model. We have spiritual, social, emotional, occupational, intellectual, environmental, financial, and physical. So we're going to take a look at each step in this model, but we're going to pause here. So as employment specialists and individuals who work with young people to provide employment, what areas do you focus on? And so if you're looking at this chart, please use the annotate feature. And I see a lot of love on this chart. Use the annotate feature and put down the things that you're assessing when you work with young people. Put a star or a check mark or a heart next to that area. All right, this is really good. So we have some responses under spiritual. The first thing is, this is great. We have individuals who are covering every aspect of this model and the characteristics of the model. And it looks like we have the most stars around intellectual, environmental. We have a lot of response around emotional, a lot around physical as well. Right, this is great. Right, so we're going to move into the first area of spiritual wellness. In this category, we're looking at self-esteem and we're looking at religion. And a lot of times we think of spirituality and we think of religion and we think of church, but it's not just religion and church. It is self-esteem. It is the youth and young adults' personal style and what inspires them. Also, their culture, their beliefs, their values, integrity, faith, and balance, trust, hope, and visualization. And so what we've done is we've gone through each of these values and looked at some curious questions, because this is not the goal of this session today is to not say, here, ask these questions and you'll be good to go, but more so of a conversation to provoke thinking and innovation around how can we engage our young people in conversations around these categories that we know are important to them being able to sustain and achieve their employment goals. And so some curious questions around spiritual wellness may be, how does your mental health impact your self-esteem? What do you believe about your ability to be successful in or at this organization, at this company, or in obtaining a job? Because sometimes we connect people and we figure that they come to us and they want to work and they must feel good that they can be successful in that. And sometimes they want to work because they need the money, but they don't feel like they can be successful. But if we don't ask the question, then we won't know. Also, who or what inspires you and why? Because sometimes we may be able to obtain an idea of people that inspire them and take a look at the characteristics of those individuals and help that young person identify similar characteristics within themselves or provide them with opportunities and resources to build those skills within themselves, if possible. Also, who or what keeps you going when you're tired or overwhelmed? That's important because we know that work is not easy for anyone and that there are going to be challenges, there are going to be things that we have to navigate, co-workers, supervisors, and so forth. And so we need to know what that looks like for that young person. Do they have a meltdown? What is that? Will they walk off the job and never come back? Like, we might want to know that. What happens when you're tired and overwhelmed, so that we can say, okay, when this happens during your lunch break, maybe take a walk or ask your supervisor if you can have a break so you can breathe or do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And also within this, I think that the most important question every single time, and we'll see this repeatedly throughout this presentation, how can I best support you? Because sometimes there are no questions that we can think of, and we know that this category exists, but it may be, how can I best support you? So we'll pause here. What is coming up for you all? What curious questions that what curious questions are coming up for you? And again, this list is not meant to be exhaustive. It's meant to just provoke thoughts. So if someone would like to share one, we'll have someone come off mute.
Yeah, I would actually like to share one. It's more of a, I guess it's another question. But in my role, I find that a lot of the youth I work with, when I ask one of those open-ended questions, like, what can I do to support you? They don't know. And I found with a lot of them, I have to ask, open-ended questions are still really important, but I can't start with that like really open-ended question like that. I kind of have to be more like, if in a situation like this before, what have you done to feel more at ease, or like what are the things in the situation that trigger you, that like start to create these feelings? How can we recognize that feeling of like retreating is coming on, and what can we do to like just start to like recover from that?
Thank you for sharing that, Matthew. Definitely on point. And again, these questions are curious questions, and it requires a relationship, that we build a relationship with the young people, because there are a lot of young people who don't know, and that we have to say, okay, here's some options. I can help with this. I can assist with this. I can assist with this. What are your thoughts? What do you prefer? And there's some that absolutely know, how can I best support you? You can do A, B, C, and D. And so it's important to know which style is preferred and which is helpful, and that there's not one that we go to every single time, but it's having the flexibility to be able to use various options. Okay, so in social wellness, we're looking at status, we're looking at community, family, celebration, personal growth, and responsible communication. And so some curious questions within this could be, what are your goals for yourself in the next 90 days, 6 months, or 12 months? And so again, centering what that youth or young adult goals are. What are they interested in doing? What excites them about being able to work? What things are most celebrated in your family, and what's most frowned upon? If it's frowned upon that if you don't show up for dinner at 6 p.m., then you get treated differently in your family. We know not to put them in a position where they're going to be working during dinner time, because our goal is to help them with employment, but not make their situation at home worse, or create challenges within that. Also, what does community mean to you? Do you feel like your community values you? And also, what is your preferred style of communication? All of these things are important when we're helping young people secure employment. And we're going to move through this because we have an activity, so we'll speed this up. Okay. So emotional wellness, we're looking at self-awareness, fear, anger, joy, disappointment, anxiety, resentment, doubts, regrets, anger, stress management, and relaxation. And so curious questions here may be, what brings you the most joy and excitement about obtaining a job? What gives you the most anxiety or fear about obtaining a job? And what tools, resources, or services could help you manage your feelings so that you could thrive? And how can I best support you? And again, these questions are to provoke thought, and some of these questions we will not use as they are. We would tailor them to meet the needs of the individuals that we're working with, and also to make sure that they are age and culturally engaging and using terminology that that young person is familiar with. Occupational wellness, we're looking at job skills, positions, career goals, job transitions, job satisfaction, competencies, and problem solving. And our curious questions here, which I'm sure are very familiar to you all because you're using these questions on a daily basis. If you could work your dream job, what would that look like? What type of tasks would you be doing? How many hours or days would you work? And sometimes I found when we get individuals to dream, they think of things that they wouldn't have thought of if we just asked them, like, what type of job you want. If we say in the dream world, what type of job do you want? What would you be doing? How would your dream job make you feel and why? What skills and expertise would you love to bring to the job? And understanding that the job is just not providing them with employment or a check, but they have gifts and skills that they're going to bring to wherever they're at. And really honing in on that is important. And again, how can I best assist and support you? Intellectual wellness, we're looking at accountability, knowledge, education, experience, cognitive skills, the ability to set goals, reflection, and critical thinking. So some questions here would be, what knowledge, education, or experiences do you feel you need to be successful? What are the next critical steps? And what are you most concerned about? And how can I best support you? Environmental wellness, we're looking at diversity and social consciousness, personal impact, awareness of self and others, also social responsibility, interdependence, and respect. And so looking at what do they believe their gifts are to their loved ones, to their friends, to the community, to the world. What would your closest friends and loved ones say about your impact in their lives? And so really trying to draw them into the assets and the gifts that they bring, so that we can help increase their confidence and their self-efficacy around the work that they will be doing. Also, who does your circle of support consist of, and what do they provide to you? And also, how can you best support them? So again, looking at community and looking at who within that circle can help them as they navigate work life. Also, financial wellness, earning potential, money management, debt load, budget, long-term planning. This is one of the things that we previously did a lot of work in, especially budget. What is your current budget and how do you manage it? And also working with young people as they're working and helping them prepare for holidays, helping them prepare for birthdays, helping them prepare so that they're able to have balanced meal on a limited budget sometimes were things that young people were seeking. And making sure they're able to buy gifts for their friends, that they still want to be able to contribute to their friend circle, but they still want to be able to make their car payment or pay their mortgage or pay any personal bills that they may have. Also, what are your short-term and longer-term money goals? How do we set them up to be successful in that? And understanding that it may not be immediate, but that we hear them and we see them and we are trying as much as possible to put them on a track where they can achieve their goals and working alongside them to do that. All right, physical wellness, we're looking at appearance, we're looking at stamina, exercise, health, and self-care, also rest and nutrition, and focusing, and then self-motivation. So talking to them about how they would rate their health, maybe on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being poor or 10 being excellent, or it could be on a scale from 1 to 5. Also, what activities help them to feel their best and their healthiest self, making sure that there's balance there, that they're working, but they're also taking time to take care of themselves and understanding the impact of wellness. Also, what do you need to be your best self, but do not currently have? That may be a question of additional resources that may support that young person in their job. So I'm going to take a look in the chat, and there was a question that came up around how can we motivate them? And that's a great question. And that's a question that really, I think, requires us to take a look at our relationship with the young people. Okay. And it requires us to really dig into that relationship. And so the question is, what is causing them to not be motivated? And also looking at what that means. Is that word subjective? Are we saying they're not motivated because it doesn't meet our mental model of what motivation looks like? Or are they motivated in a different way? Or maybe they're scared. And so really asking the questions around what is creating challenges to be motivated, but even questioning, digging beneath that and even questioning what that means. are they not motivated, or are they not motivated in a way that we feel they should be? And so at going back through that chart and looking at each dimension of that diagram and looking at where are there intersections that are causing them not to be motivated, or causing them challenges, or causing them fear or anxiety around work. And I think once we do that and we have a conversation and they understand that your role is bigger than helping them find a job, but that it's connected to them living well and being able to achieve their financial goals, that hopefully that conversation will open them up to really sharing what's going on. So next, we're going to enter into breakout rooms, and Ashley will lead us into breakout rooms, but just to provide an overview of what we're going to do. So we have a profile that we've created for Jonavan. Jonavan, he, him, they, is a 17-year-old who identifies as Afro-Cuban and non-binary. Jonavan was raised and is currently residing with their grandmother. They have a great relationship. They were diagnosed with ADHD and oppositional defiance disorder in elementary school. He struggled significantly in high school, but is on track to graduate. Loves to play video games with online friends. Receives Social Security income supplement. Unsure about obtaining further education or obtaining a job, and does not feel the urgency to decide. So within your groups, what we would like for you to do, we will put a link to a Jamboard in the chat. And what we would like for you to do is use that Jamboard to just think of some questions within each of those dimensions that we spoke about. And within the Jamboard, there is slides. So you will see the interpersonal wellness chart. Again, you will see instructions within it. So no worries about that. But what we would like for you to do is use the Jamboard to put in curious questions. What type of questions would you ask in each of those dimensions? At the end of this conversation, this will be a document that you will receive along with the slide deck, where you can have some other questions to think about when you're with young people. So here's the activity. So individually, we're going to give you 3 minutes to go back in. Again, we'll put the Jamboard link in the chat to read Jonavan's profile, and then choose 2 dimensions from the interpersonal wellness system model that work, that you're least familiar with, so that work with the least in your role. And then identify at least 1 curious question that you would like to ask Jonavan in each of the selected dimensions. So if you chose spirituality, you would ask a question. What would you ask Jonavan, knowing the scenario and knowing this what's going on in this young person's life? What question would you ask in spirituality if you chose that dimension? So choose 2 dimensions. So once we do that, we'll move into small groups. And in your group, you will share your selected dimensions and one of the questions that you asked. And then you will go into a larger group, which we call our medium group, which you'll share within that group as well. Then we'll come back to this larger group and we'll do another chatterfall about something that you learned in your groups, or something that was an aha moment that you might have not thought about in the past. Who identifies as Afro-Cuban and non-binary, raised by and currently residing with their grandmother. They have a great relationship. So they're diagnosed with ADHD and oppositional defiance disorder in elementary school, struggles significantly in high school, but is on track to graduate, loves to play video games with online friends, receives Social Security income supplement, unsure about obtaining further education or obtaining a job, and does not feel an urgency to decide. And so earlier, someone asked about motivation. And so this particular overview is rooted in motivation. So we'll take a look at that. So we'll go through and just take a look at these dimensions, and if anything, and what came up for you in the dimensions, if you shared something in your group that you would like to share for each dimension. So with spiritual, if you can put that in the chat, some ideas or questions that came up for you in your group with spiritual. And if someone would like to come off mute and share like an aha moment they might have had in their group, or just thinking through this. I know and some of the groups, there were conversations around this being something that is rarely talked about in the workplace, or not, and not on any assessments as well.
Right. And it wasn't mentioned in the profile.
Mm-hmm. So it would be a question that we would ask to gain additional information about.
Maybe asking about traditions that the family has, that you know, especially with the grandma, like what kind of traditions does your grandma put into place? Does she have any beliefs? Because that seems to be a big strength of this youth, is their relationship with the grandma. So really seeing if like there's a connection there. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. And this is good. This is probably what we learned something today about this. But it looks like people are entering questions in the chat, and you can heart and thumbs up other people's questions. So please feel free to do that, and we will gather these questions from the chat as well, in addition to those that were placed on the Jam board. What about social? What came up for individuals in the social category? And if you could share those in the chat.
Are we able to come off mute and answer, or you're wanting everybody in the chat?
If you would like to answer for social, that would be great.
Okay, for social.
Or did you pick a different one?
Yeah, so I couldn't pick just one, so I put two numbers together and two of my answers.
Okay.
So like, for example, I did 1 and 3 together, so emotional, environmental. So like I gave a disclaimer. So like basically I believe that your environment plays a big role in like your mental health and your productivity and your emotional state. So I would take that approach, and then I would ask like, how do you personalize your environment to benefit you and personalize you and what you like, what you do, what you prefer around you, the energy you like around you, you know, in that instance. And I would specify benefit and suit you. Not just cater to you or scream you in a sense of like, oh yeah, I definitely know if I walk in this room, this is Jonathan's room, you know, but how is it benefiting you? Like down to the colors on your walls, you know, the posters on your walls. Is it your favorite artist? Are they motivational? You know, things like that.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And we'll have one more share for the sake of time. Who would like to share? And it could be a category of your choosing.
I guess I'll go ahead and share with our group.
Thank you,
We
Sabrina.
picked, you're welcome. We picked a various amount of different categories, but I believe it was social, intellectual, and physical and environmental. We said that based upon, is it Jonathan or Donovan?
Jonathan.
Jonathan. Okay. Based upon Jonathan's description, we weren't sure if they felt comfortable wanting to partake in a job. And so we wanted to motivate them by asking questions about what they liked in regards to the job. And then maybe if they had a particular like organization or employer in mind, then we would ask them like what kind of motivates them to want to seek out a job, and then find out things that they liked about the job or about the company, and then go into the website to figure out maybe like 3 particular details that they like particularly. So then when we go back to like asking them, or if they feel like if they're like regressing in the behavior of like not wanting to get the job and feeling discouraged, maybe that we would encourage them by rephrasing and going back to why they stated that they were motivated to get the job, and then also see if it was in their culture to get a job at this time.
Thank you so much, Sabrina, for sharing that.
Yeah.
Right. I know we are trying to be cognizant of time and work around technical difficulties, but I want us to also, as you're entering questions in the chat, you can continue to share, but I want to make sure that we make room for our phenomenal guest today. And Kendra, I will ask you to come off and we will move into your segment of spotlighting the work that you're doing.
Okay.
Just tell me when to.
Okay. So thank you so much all for being here. Let's see. I guess just going right into it. Again, Kendra Moore with Pacific Mountain Workforce Development Council out here in Olympia, Washington, in Thurston County. And Pac Mountain helps to identify job seekers that best meets employers' needs. One, people who are employed and want to move up in their career. Two, students who have recently graduated from an education or training program. Three, people new or returning to the workforce. Four, and people who have recently lost their job or looking to transition to a new occupation. We prioritize funding to find, assist, and employ individuals identified as vulnerable populations who may need additional supports to reach their potential. And again, our Workforce Development Council or any Workforce Development Council, they are providing services or they partner with their local work source or those American Job Centers. Next slide, please. And prioritizing our, I, again, am a strategic manager for Justice Impacted. So serving and designing, implementing programs for our priority populations and our justice impacted individuals, primarily youth, but also focusing on adult for myself and my expertise. But Pac Mountain is also, you know, working alongside organizations such as Department of Children, Youth, and Families, their juvenile rehabilitation, as well as a couple of county jails out here in the state to be able to provide pre and post services. Now, getting a little into our mobility mentoring, and you can go back, Dr. Tisha. Thank you. So speaking a little on mobility mentoring, this is a best practice that we here at Pac Mountain like to implement into our services. So mobility mentoring is defined as the professional practice of partnering with participants so that over time they may acquire the resources, skills, and sustained behavior changes necessary to attain and preserve their economic independence. The model has 4 essential elements, as you see on the slide: coaching for economic mobility, the bridge to self-sufficiency, goal setting, and recognition, alongside that continuous improvement. Next slide, please. So employment and education training, or EET, it is connecting youth to job readiness training. It is a model used in Washington State's juvenile court system. And again, that 10.5 hours of evidence-based curriculum. So you have curriculum such as, and as you may see on the job readiness training competency form that you have in front of you, there questions such as, you know, interviewing skills, job retention, you know, keeping the job, but you also see job behavior, right? And we'll talk about how our programs kind of speak to that job behavior, especially when working with our youth. And so we'll speak a little bit on Uplift, which is our 40-hour curriculum in the next slide, please. Thank you. So juveniles in the workforce. As I mentioned, we do have a My Job program, which is called, or otherwise, My Journey Out Beyond. And with the My Job program, we have partnered with the Department of Children, Youth, and Families, or DCYF's Juvenile Rehabilitation Department, to be able to provide our My Job program or those pre and post release services to our youth and young adults. out at Green Hills School in Chehalis, Washington. And with this program, we're able to get them connected with our career specialists to capture their career interests and develop a training plan for that skill gain. So we'll conduct the career exploration, being able to identify 2 of their top 2 career choices. And I'm sorry if I'm kind of like jittery and I'm just like going from the activity and just jumping right in kind of threw me off. So but we got this, so thank you for your patience. So then once we capture those 2 top career choices, the participant will then complete a portfolio, go over some self-advocacy workshops and that career readiness training, right? Hence that uplift. So in our uplift, in that 40-hour curriculum, again, we're going over things such as, you know, how not only how to get the job, but how to keep and thrive at the job. So our career specialists will then connect participants to those support services and community partners upon reentry. But before we get them to reentry, we again like to introduce them to that skill gain. So what does that look like? Well, we get them packaged up in Uplift, again, getting their portfolio developed. And once they get into skill gain, that's any career training in self-advocacy, work-based learning, and post-secondary education, right? So on site at Green Hill, they do have opportunities such as auto shop, a construction program, which is called ANEW, or their TEPA program, as well as, you know, auto shop. They have some cosmetology programs coming up, and we like to go ahead and work alongside the instructors who would act as their supervisor, and they're getting the skill gain to get them ready again for our that career for them upon release. And so again, once they hit that reentry mark and they've gotten some skill gain, we've gotten them trained up, we then go ahead and work alongside, you know, everybody in their support system. So we all know it takes a village to raise a child or to help someone in need. And so when we're working with our youth, Green Hills School offers what's called a release transition meeting, or that RTM. And so with their RTM, they have, you know, the family in there. If the youth is releasing to parole or probation, they have them around the table, you know, their counselors on site, maybe their career coaches, or, you know, whomever has been in this youth support circle. Those people come around the table to just kind of speak to the youth who's also around that table, and to say, you know, they came in and this is what they were able to accomplish. This is their next steps. I can speak to our vocational programming. And again, around that table, we're letting them know, hey, this is what they were able to accomplish in our program. These are the skills and certifications they were able to obtain. This is where they're going as far as, you know, community, city, county, what have you. And this is who they've been connected to, whether it's a community-based organization or their next American Job Center. Next slide, please. So within that uplift curriculum, we're also teaching them what we call a justice involvement speech. Now, we are serving our justice impacted youth. So again, those pre and post release services, you may come across a few youth in your community that have had a run-in with the justice system, right? And so within the justice involvement speech, we're going over, have you been convicted of a crime? If yes, explain. That's usually on an application. Washington did adopt a bill that's called a ban the box, where that question is now taken off of applications, but, you know, wordplay, and it does end up becoming a question in other words, right? So teaching the youth to be able to acknowledge that they do have justice involvement, however, not telling, you know, their story or telling exactly, you know, details of what they've done with that crime. But again, being able to acknowledge that there was a run-in, or that they've made some poor choices you know, in the past, but knowing that the employer does have the right to know. I'm teaching them to be sincere. And also, how did you improve? What did you learn from those bad decisions or those mistakes, you know, things of that nature? And what are the advantages of that employer being able to hire on that youth, right? What are their goals? What have they accomplished, and how have they been able to get to where they are now? Again, kind of helping out with those mentals and getting our youth slowly but surely back into that workspace. Next slide, please. So navigating the workplace, we do speak to adaptability and transitionability in our curriculum. And so we speak to, you know, how adaptable am I? Well, there is a difference, we all know, of that street life, between the street life, being at home, or being at work, right? I can't come into my professional workspace and, you know, speak how I would speak around my friends, right? Or if you're going out with some of your friends, you know, just out to socialize, it may look different than when you're out, you know, on a work event and you're trying to socialize, right? But then we think of our youth, and they go from their community where they learn and they're influenced from their culture, right? And then we stick them into this professional world, and we automatically expect them, you know, to code switch, as we will call it. But how do I do that? And you know, how has that worked for me, right? So we speak on ways to improve. We speak on how stress may look different in each space. Your stress in the streets may look different than your stress at home. Your stress at home may look different than the stress that you get from your workplace. And so helping the youth to understand that, because they're automatically expected to adapt when they're completing an intake, you know, into the justice facility. Now, their transition, speaking on transitionability, again, having those conversations about working with generations, different generations in the workplace. We know that, you know, nowadays, our Gen Zs, they are quick to be on their phones. You know, a lot of times I'm going into a store and I'll ask, you know, one of the younger employees a question of, you know, where a product is in the store. And so I go up and I'm like, hey, excuse me. And they're like, what's up? And I'm like, oh, like, and I feel disrespected, right? And my son, he's 15, he's like, Mom, they're just asking, like, you know, how can they help you? He's just chill. And I'm like, is that really the norm in the workplace now? And so again, being able to have those conversations, given that, you know, a youth may walk into the workplace and their boss is, you know, older than them. Yes, Beverly, their lingo, right? Being able to speak to their lingo, being able to speak their language, especially when we're speaking on career coaching and that peer support, being able to, you know, be at their level to help them, just to understand. And that's a great segue into their elevator speech. You know, who are you? What do you want? What are you asking for? And being able to sum that up in a couple of minutes, to where if they were literally on an elevator with someone that they respect their work and they would love an opportunity with them, but how do you speak to that? And so we speak on that. You got 30 seconds, you know, on the elevator, and you have just that amount of time to be able to convince someone that you are that right person for them to, you know, even give a call back on their time. We also speak to, what do you do when you're trying to exceed your first 90 days, right? Your first 90 days, you get comfortable, you start to get your flow, you start to get your routine. But how are you able to grow in those 90 days? How are you able to get some recognition in those 90 days? What are your, do you understand who to go to and who to contact within your first 90 days when you know, you're speaking to growth opportunities, or you're speaking to, you know, may I shadow someone in another department? So again, being able to speak in to that adaptability and transitionability. Next slide, please. So here we do develop that professional portfolio for our youth. And in that professional portfolio, it's a document that holds their cover letter and resume, their references, their certificates and certifications, those letter of recommendations, right? And that cover letter and resume, again, speaking to their lingo, it should fit who that young person is. And so walking through a template with them, opposed to providing a blank paper or direction on, hey, you know, go to the Word document and pull up resumes and just fill out the template. Well, they don't understand what duties and tasks are. So we go through, you know, what's called ONET. That's a website. We show them ONET, and it's somewhere where you can put in, oh, I was once a warehouse worker. And so you put in warehouse worker, and all of these tasks come up to where they can, you know, copy and paste onto their resume if it fits to them. Right. And so being able to just kind of help them navigate different tools as such is a great way to be able to speak to that cover letter and resume. We speak to references, right? We all think that references has to be, you know, an ex-boss or an ex-coworker. Well, references can also be those mentors, trainers, and coaches. You know, we're speaking to community and be in that village. Well, those, again, those mentors, trainers, and coaches can be a reference for our young people. Next slide, please. So here we have, yes, ONET is a great tool, and we also use like Tradeify for our career exploration, which is also an awesome tool. Thank you for that. So we speak to, you know, when our youth are getting ready, they're doing some work on the office. So sorry if you hear some background noise. But our youth, when they are releasing and they're getting ready to go back into their communities, right? They're going back to these same potential broken homes, those same friends that, you know, were maybe not so good for them and helping them make those bad choices and bad decisions. But they're going right back into this environment where they now have have maybe been traumatized. They're going right back into this environment where they didn't have any success, and they just feel that negative energy. And yet we're sending them back, and we're like, you've gotten all this therapy and you've gotten, you know, all this support. We're here for you. But there's no one walking out those gates with them, and there's no one being able to say you're doing wrong or you're doing bad, unless they're able to continue that village and carry that village on with that continuum of care. Well, again, we're constantly talking about, you know, success for the youth, or, you know, they're a successful reentry and getting them prepared. Well, little times are we able to talk to or speak to the parents or the family. You know, now that youth is in a program, or, you know, coming back home from incarceration, whatever, you know, what have you, and whatever that looks like for that family, that's now an extra mouth to feed for that family. That's now, you know, what if their youth has been institutionalized? And that's where that intellectual and that spiritual and emotional on that model will come in significantly. And so 2017, there was some research done. And as it says here, economic security programs cut poverty significantly across all age and major racial and ethnic groups by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. And as you can see, there's some numbers here for you to review. And again, this is on the Center of Budget and Policy website. And so in 2019, Give me 1 second. In 2019, Governor Inslee was able to go in and fund some programs for Washington State. And if I can get to my notes here. 1 second. So he announced 5.8 million in grants today to fight poverty in Washington State. The grants awarded from the governor's Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, statewide activities funds, were competitively awarded to 4 local workforce development areas who developed local collective impact initiatives and plans focused on lifting families to above 200% of federal poverty level. So again, Economic Security for All, or EXA, is an initiative for building and testing locally developed approaches for streamlining access to existing service and benefits, helping more families move out of poverty. So we'll explore some incentives we here at Pac Mountain have developed. Next slide, please. So with our EXA incentives, we were able to develop some activities for our participants to go ahead and take advantage of. So as you see here, you know, becoming employed and completing 160 hours of that employment, were given $1,000, right? Achieving a recognized credential, again, $1,000. Attending a free financial education class with the financial coach, that's $75 for up to 4 times, given the appointments the financial coach may feel is applicable. And then increasing your credit score by 50 points or more, $100, and you can do that up to 6 points. And so again, these incentives is something that is able to keep you know, participants motivated. And what does it look like holding conversations around individual development accounts and allowing participants to self-sufficiency? And those individual development accounts are for our folks that we may be serving, to say, hey, you know, you may be on TANF and food stamps, right? However, or even Social Security, but we're going to give you this individual development account in this bank that acts as a savings account. And what it does is, one, the state has the ability to match that. And this account will also protect you from the from your benefits, your state benefits being impacted. And again, you're only able to withdraw from this account if you're making a major purchase, such as, you know, buying a home, going for post-secondary education, buying a car, things of that nature. So just thinking of different ways to be able to incentivize our participants when they're going through and moving through, you know, their career journey, and just working alongside our you know, community-based organizations, our partners in our communities, things of that nature. Next slide, please. So in the participant flow, as you see, the participant is here in the middle. And here at Pac Mountain, again, we're able to kind of offer and provide those wraparound services. And what does that look like for a successful youth that we're looking for? Well, you have this youth in the middle. You have a career coach that is working alongside them. And that career coach is literally just their middleman to speak to when they're trying to be employed. If they have a background, this middleman is going out and speaking to employers for those second chance opportunities, if you will. And again, being able to set them up with you know, our WIOA programs, or our Pac Mountain Tea specialty programs, such as EXA. We also have one that is CTAP, Community Transition Assistance program, and that is for any individual that has released within the past 12 months or whom are currently on community supervision. And with CTAB, we're able to pay off legal financial obligations. We were able to help people, retrieve their driver's license that haven't had a driver's license in, over 20 years. We were able to fund what they're called blow and goes for those who may have had like a DUI, and now they have to have the machine or the device in their car to be able to drive. We're able to pay, for the installation and monthly fees on those, being able to provide a cell phone or just a suit, right? And those are those support services that we may not even think of. And that kind of leads me into hygiene, right? A lot of folks say, well, how can we speak to hygiene if we notice, our client has an odor, or our client has, clothes that aren't presentable? What can we do, and how do we ask those questions? Well, we as women, we need certain things. And if a woman is working with a male, they're not going to ask for certain things, right? And I bring that up because there was a story when a woman had no choice but to, go throughout the whole day with something that she really needed, but she only had one thing. And, when there was talk around the office and people are like, they started to smell an odor. We'll come to find out that that woman did not have access to hygiene products that she needed. And, she only had enough for one a day, and I'm trying to say something without, not saying too much. And so if you get me, it's something as simple as just making a document and providing that to your participant to say, hey, do you have access to these items? And how can I support you and provide you these items? Again, we're constantly talking about get a job, put people in jobs. But a lot of times these people are not ready for jobs mentally, physically, or financially. Again, connecting them to those adult basic education opportunities. And for GED obtainment, a lot of our folks out here that are in poverty are not able to, they weren't able to finish school. Rather it's, a 16-year-old having to go and get a job and drop out of school so he can be that second income for his mother. Again, getting to know our youth and their stories, right? Kind of like Jonathan, but Jonathan has it good where he can play video games all day. But grandma, what if it was the opposite way around? Grandma was in all day and needed his support, and now Jonathan is the bread maker, right? And so again, connecting them to financial coaching. So ensuring they have that education and ensuring they have some financial literacy and they have a coach to be able to help them through budgets. Vocational training and WEX or work experience and on-the-job training opportunities. Again, speaking to these employers, not only speaking to, hey, second chance opportunities, but how can we work together to ensure that this youth is successful and that this youth can move up? So the youth can't speak to that. I heard someone earlier say that, they're asking a youth, how can I help you? And the youth don't know. I myself, at the age I'm at, I'm not going to share, but at the age I'm at, I still think to myself, I don't know what I need. I'm just on autopilot. So imagine a youth that has been traumatized. And again, at my age, I just found out last year that I've been traumatized. Hence, this is why I, react to certain things the way that I do. I speak to certain things that I do. Again, living in San Bernardino, California, and moving up here to Washington. I live in Puyallup and I work in Olympia. But if you know anything about San Bernardino, California, that was a culture shock for me. And so I automatically think to myself, what are these youth going through when they know where they're from and they know their culture, but now they have to adopt to someone else's culture, even if it's a work environment. And how can I be able to adapt and learn my transition ability and be true and authentic to who I am if it's not accepted of where I'm going? And so being able to place them in these work experiences or these on-the-job trainings where there's not only a supervisor who's going to micromanage, potentially, or just give them self-evaluations to, check those boxes or to, say, oh, I did that. But we're these people who are being able to say, here's an internship, and I'm going to provide you with some mentorship on top of that. I'm going to provide you that peer support. So when you come in here and you're having a bad day, we can sit in the break room, we could talk about it, or to pull me to the side or come to my office as I have an open door, so being able to give them those opportunities. And then connecting with community-based organizations. Again, me as a career coach, I'm not able to go out and, hold their hand. And I'm not a specialist in housing. I'm not a specialist in, mental health. And so where are my community-based organization partners to where I could say, you know what, I have somebody, let me introduce you to them, even if it's a virtual conversation, initially for that intake. And then being able to say, oh, that youth's going to say, oh, Miss Moore, Kendra, for sure, I'll work with you. And sometimes it's just having that what they will call clout, right? Having that clout in the community is gonna assure your respect and their trust in you that you can uphold those promises. And then again, at the end of the day, our end goal is for that job placement. And so once we place them into the job, being able to offer those wraparound services. Again, now that you have the job, how are you going to keep that job? How are you going to thrive at that job? How are you going to grow in that job if that's what you want? And if that's not what you want, where do you want to be at? Jonathan, right? How can we help and continue for you to be successful and for you to continue to grow? And it's all about exposure. What does job shadowing look like? What does it look like to bring a community member from a specified work industry to say, hey, you want to learn about this industry? I'm gonna bring this guy to you. Wherever you're working at, having what we call speaker events, someone to just be able to come in and speak to, or informational interviews, someone coming in and allowing that you to ask questions. Again, being able to go to a building to say, hey, can I conduct or schedule a job shadow and just sit with you and see what it's like to be in the industry. That's what we look at when we're doing job placement, and again, those WEX opportunities. And at the end of the day, we want to incorporate that some economic mobility through that mobility mentoring, and we want our youth to be self-sufficient. Next slide, please. I really thank you guys thank you all for this space. Advocating for our youth just across the country. Again, I'm originally from California, living up here in Washington State, and working alongside DCYF and juvenile rehabilitation has been a passion of mine. Just knowing that, where I come from, I still have family out in San Bernardino, and just knowing my surrounding communities and the youth that I serve, and knowing that there are folks out there whom are willing to partner and to communicate, their indifferences. We have a lot of people that don't understand the culture of our youth and young adults. And, that's okay, but being able to connect and knowing when to connect, and being able to tell them when they're doing wrong, or being able to correct their wrongs is highly important. And so again, I thank you all for your time and your efforts in the work that you're doing currently in your communities.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kendra. And thank you to each of you, Kendra included, for navigating with us real time as we navigate technical challenges challenges with the technology and things like that, but we really appreciate your time today and really appreciate you, Kendra, being here with us in the work that you're doing and sharing that real-time innovative things that we can do as we look at each of those dimensions as we're working with youth and young adults. We have like 5 minutes. If someone has a question that they would like to ask, we have 2 questions we're able to take.
Well, there was a,
Go ahead.
no, please, go ahead.
Hi, this is Beverly McNeil. I'm a psychiatric mental health counselor at a young adults institution in Las Vegas, Nevada, serving youth with criminal backgrounds from age 14 to 21. And Kendra, I like the way you address the check the box question. It's always difficult for my youth to state if they've had any criminal history. And not believing that the employer is just going to throw the application out right away. And so my suggestion has been to them, let's talk. I don't advise them to check the box. I want them to see the person in front of them before they see what kind of criminal history they may have. So it's a way around checking the box that has been resourceful for us here. That was the question. It was more a statement. But thank you for your information.
Absolutely, yes. I was sitting here thinking, how can I answer this question? But I appreciate you clarifying that it was more of a statement. So thank you for that.
There was a question in the chat a little early on about where to find free financial coaches that you mentioned, Kendra. Do you have any resources that you can share, or that maybe we can share out with the group later?
Absolutely. You can check with your local banks or actual, we have what's called American Financial Solutions out here. And I can share that in the chat as well. But we've been working with AFS, or American Financial Solutions. And that was the first time I had heard of free financial coaching. But there are other organizations that will offer that free financial coaching. So I would check in with your local banks as well. They may be able to give you some entities that are more private.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I would also recommend, if you have financial consultants, financial coaches in your area, that you reach out to them, because I know here, one of my colleagues does financial coaching, and she has money and is always trying to spend it down and trying to find people who are looking for it, those courses and services. So if you know someone, maybe reaching out to them as well to find out if they have an upcoming grant or something like that to keep you and your organization in mind.
Tanisha, if I could give one quick plug for our upcoming youth and young adult support space, that will kick off on February the 15th. I think that's very relevant to the conversation that we've been having today. We create this space as a virtual space for people who are working and leading youth-centered programs and organizations. It's your space to having discussions and get to meet one another, know one another. So we hope that you'll sign up. I just dropped the link in the chat where you can register for that support space. So we hope to see you there on February the 15th. Also, NTAC hosts a virtual System of Care Summit, completely and totally free for you all to join in. That's going to be May 9th through the 11th. So keep an eye out for registration for that free summit, where we'll be talking about topics like the one today and lots of other topics that are relevant to serving youth and families.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley. And thank you again, Kendra. Thank you for attending. And I know we are at time. We will send out a survey. Please let us know how we can improve. We have some items definitely on our list of what we'll be doing and improving on as we move forward with this. But thank you again for your time. And if there are topics or questions that you would like to have more information about, please include those in that survey as well. Thank you. Be safe and be well.